Welcome back to Living in Mexico. I'm Ana Maria Salazar. Thank you so much for joining us once again. I tweet or I use X on my both uh, my English speaking account and Spanish account, and I usually send messages at the following account at Mexico Daily, and my personal account, which I send a lot of messages both in English and in Spanish, is at AM Salazar. So hopefully you can join me in either account. And it's interesting week in Mexico. As we commented at the top of the hour, there was a scare and with the Mexican economy, well, the world economy. Markets around the world fell, but we're going to be talking about that later on in the show. But also, there's this huge debate taking place in terms of what if Morena, the party, will have a supermajority or not in both Congress and the Senate. And as you know, this is very important because it's the difference between passing constitutional reforms without the support of the opposition. And of course, we're all thinking about and trying to understand how this will impact the last reforms that were presented by President Manuel Lopez Obrador, which includes the judicial reform, very controversial reform, which would include electing judges. So, to try to help us understand what is the debate right now that is taking place. Joining us again is Benito Nacif. Dr. Benito Nacif was at the Federal Electoral Institute for, I don't know how many years. You were there 12 years, correct,
Well,
Benito? Yeah. Well, and you've seen, and you had to make a decision and analysis regarding these types of issues that we're discussing today. So, welcome to the show. Could you just briefly describe to us? And I know it's complicated, but just try to help us understand what is this debate all about?
well, Ana Maria, first of all, thank you for inviting me to your show. And I'll try to make this as simple as possible. Mexico has a, a mixed electoral system. You have 300 um, single member districts, and you have 200 seats that are elected by the principle of proportional representation. And parties can have seats either by the single majority of first past the post principle and also by proportional representation. And there is, well, there are a number of dispositions in the Constitution, Article 54, that sets limits to the number of deputies that a party can have. It says clearly that a single party cannot have more than 300 seats in the Chamber of Deputies. And also, it says that a party cannot have an overrepresentation of more than 8%. That means that the difference between the share of the votes of the vote cast and the share of the Chamber of Deputies cannot be cannot surpass this 8% limit. The debate right now, and I think it is the most important debate we have had in Mexico about the future of Mexican democracy, it's whether these limits, the one on the total number, the absolute number of seats that a party can have, and the limit on the percentage of overrepresentation applies as well to electoral coalitions, which is a form that the participation of political parties can take in specific elections. Uh, if the answer is no, it only applies to political parties, that means Morena and its allies will have 372 seats out of 500. And with it the majority, the power to amend the Constitution, to shape the Constitution according to its will and convenience. Yeah. And more than that, yeah, the opposition cannot have the number of votes that it needs according to the Constitution to appeal to the Supreme Court in order for this organ to exercise its judicial review powers. So basically, if this supermajority is allowed to be created, yeah, that means that the minority in the opposition in the Chamber of Deputies will be a merely testimonial opposition with
So,
no
yeah.
capacity to influence anything.
Well, let me ask you this then. I mean, what the argument, I'm the devil's advocate here. The argument by the President Manuel Lopez Obrador, and the President elect Dr. Claudia Sheinbaum, is that in the past, this analysis basically favors this the fact that it's not necessarily the party, but it's the coalition. Am I right? I mean, what they're saying is in the past there has been the decision as to how many of these extra legislators you get has been favoring the argument that they're laying out right now. Is that true?
Well, I mean, they do have a point. In 2018, when President Lopez Obrador was elected, um, the problem of overrepresentation surpassing the 8% in the case of the coalition, the Juntos haremos, together we will make history. That was the name of the title of the coalition in 2018, and that coalition was overrepresented by more than 8% in the Chamber of Deputies. And some people who were affected by this way of allocating proportional representation seats in the Chamber of Deputies appealed to the electoral tribunal, and the electoral tribunal ruled that the overrepresentation limit, the 8% overrepresentation limit, applies only to political parties individually, not to coalitions, and that is a precedent. It is a single precedent. It is not jurisprudence. It could be revised, and in my opinion, it has to be revised because the conditions now are different. One reason why the conditions are different is because in 2018, no political party participated in the elections on its own. We only have 3 coalitions. This time we have citizen movement, Movimiento Ciudadano, which is the only party. And Movimiento Ciudadano can claim that in this case, they are unjustly denied representation in the Chamber of Deputies because the limit is not being applied to
parties,
coalitions.
coalition.
Yeah, so that's that's one difference. There are others.
I'm running out of time, and I know we're going to be talking about this further on. When does this decision have to be made?
Well, the General Council of INE has until the 23rd of August to approve the allocation of proportional representation seats to political parties. That will be the first application. We will know then what's the criteria that it's that INE is going to use to allocate proportional representation seats. But this will be a matter of appeal, and on appeal, the federal tribunal, the electoral tribunal, is going to have the final say.
Going to be interesting. You don't know how much I appreciate you joining us today and living in Mexico and explaining this. It's very important debate. It defines the future of Mexico's democracy
Absolutely.
in many ways. Thank you so much, Dr. Benito Nacif, former member of the Federal Electoral Institute. I really appreciate you joining us. We're going to go to commercial break. I'm Ana Maria Salazar, and you're listening and watching Living in Mexico. Don't go away. I'll be right back.